You're cold. Not the kind of cold that a sweater can fix, the kind that seeps into your fingers and curls around your ribs like a snake. The wind outside moans low across the grasslands, and all around you, your people are sleeping, curled like commas beside the fire. Sparks rise into the black, endless sky, vanishing into a sea of stars so dense you wonder has anyone ever counted them. Tonight, you won't sleep. You lie on your side, your cheek resting on a bundle of fur, and your eyes fix on the sky above. The stars are always there, yet somehow they change. Some drift, some return, some vanish, as if offended by being watched too long. You don't know their names, no one does, but you feel like they're watching you, maybe even whispering, if only you could understand. And in this moment, I'll ask you, just like your ancestors might have asked themselves, what is all this for? Welcome. Tonight, we're letting go of the now and stepping into the before, way before. We're going to follow early humans, not kings or armies, but those quiet, half-forgotten people through fire and silence, through stars and stone, as they fumble toward meaning. But first, if you're here, drop a hi in the comments with your country and local time. And hey, if this kind of sleepy storytelling makes your day feel a little calmer, like the video and subscribe, but only if you really mean it. Now, take a deep breath. Let your thoughts loosen like dry grass in the wind. Turn on a fan if you've got one, and settle in. Because we're heading back before pyramids, before writing, before memory itself. You trudge through tall grasses with the others. It's dusk. The sun has slunk behind the hills, and already the air is biting your ears. Someone drags a deer carcass. Another carries bark and moss. But all your eyes keep flicking up to the thickening sky. The stars are coming out again. There's no science for them yet. No constellations, just glittering chaos. But you've noticed some move together. Some rise earlier than others. Some vanish for months and return like long-lost friends. You have no calendar, but you're beginning to guess when the rains might come just by watching the glitter above. One of the elders claims the stars are the eyes of your dead, watching to see if you're brave. Another says they're holes in the roof of the world, where light leaks through from somewhere better. You don't argue. You just look. You reach the camp and the fire is already going. It's not just warmth, it's protection. Wild animals hate it. Spirits. Maybe too. There's something about fire that feels alive. It dances. It growls. It needs feeding. You think, sometimes, that it listens. You sit close and warm your hands. The flames crackle. The smoke drifts. Someone begins humming a tune that has no words but somehow reminds you of your mother's voice. One child lifts a stick and begins to sketch in the dirt. A swirl, a crescent, maybe a bird. That's how it begins. Meaning starts with marks, just vague outlines that feel like something. The oldest among you remembers seeing similar marks scratched on stone inside a nearby cave. They said it made them feel like someone else had been there long before. This is the first spark of memory. Not just remembering your own life, but wondering about others and how to hold on to them as the night deepens. Someone throws pine resin into the fire, and the flames snap tall and blue. You lean back on your elbows and stare upward again. Above, the stars feel colder now, but still strangely familiar. You wonder if they remember you. Historians still argue whether early Homo sapiens truly believed the stars held meaning, or whether it was later, with agriculture, that we began assigning them gods and fate. But most agree, even without writing, ancient people were watching the sky, noticing, feeling, whispering guesses. One curious detail in southern Africa. Archaeologists found stones carved with repeated zigzags and crosshatches at least 70,000 years old. Some believe it was decoration, Others think it was early symbolic thinking. A few fringe thinkers go further and say it might have been spiritual, a way to speak without speech, whatever it was. It tells us something big. You weren't just surviving. You were beginning to wonder. Your head tilts toward the moon now. It's fuller than last night. You squint. Could it be changing on purpose? Some in the group joke that it follows them. One child insists it watches her sleep. You don't laugh. Instead, you notice your chest feels warm. Not from the fire, but from something deeper, a kind of awe. Like you're standing at the edge of a truth too wide to hold. You don't have a word for meaning, but you feel it later. When the fire burns low and the coals glow red, you pull your furs tight and roll onto your back again. The stars shimmer, undisturbed. No one else is awake now. Just you. Just the sky. Just that nagging sense that someone might be out there. You fall asleep wondering not how the stars work, but why they exist at all. And that's the difference. You wake before the sun. The fire's gone cold, and the air smells of ash and damp moss. Your body aches from the hard ground, and your stomach rumbles low like some forgotten animal. You rise slowly, rubbing your eyes with the back of your hand. Above, the last few stars fade in a sky turning gray. Another day, another round of hunting, scraping, boiling roots that taste like bark. But today is different, because today, you follow someone into the dark. Not outside, inside. The mouth of the cave is a wound in the cliffside, gaping and black. You've passed it many times, always from a distance, always with a shiver. But this time, an older woman beckons you. Her hair is white, her eyes sharper than yours. She holds a torch wrapped in oily fiber, and without a word, she steps inside. You follow, slowly. The light flickers along walls that seem to breathe. Drips echo from nowhere. Bats mutter in their sleep, tucked into unseen cracks above your head. And then you see them. Marks, not random scratches or claw scars, not weathered grooves. These are deliberate. Your torchlight dances across red spirals, smudged handprints, long-limbed animals leaping from the stone itself. Some have horns, some paws. One might be a giant bird. You stare in silence. The hair on your arms rises. The old woman points. Her finger hovers over a group of dots, a rough constellation, almost like the stars you were watching last night. She doesn't explain. She doesn't need to. You understand. This is not just a cave. This is a memory. And maybe a message. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic cave art was decorative, ritualistic, or shamanic. Some believe the art was part of hunting magic, a visual spell to summon prey. Others say it recorded dreams or visions, possibly under the influence of hallucinogenic plants. A few fringe voices claim these ancient murals were early attempts at storytelling, or even the first written languages. But one thing is certain: they weren't accidents. You kneel and press your hand against a faded print. It fits, not perfectly, but close. You imagine the person who made it someone like you, but not you. Long dead, bones dust, name forgotten, and yet still here. You feel them through the stone. Outside, the others are gathering roots and checking traps. But here, in the humming dark, you're part of something older, something sacred. And you begin to realize humans aren't just tool users or fire bringers. We are mark makers. Every line tells a story no one remembers, but everyone feels. You squint at one section, where a creature with antlers seems to be half man, half beast. The paint is faint, but its presence is strong. Did someone become this creature in a dance? Was it a guardian, a warning? You turn your head and notice something odd. The drawings seem to move with the light, shift angles, and the bull charges. shift again, and it seems to leap. That's not just art. That's performance. And suddenly, you get it. This cave isn't a gallery. It's a theater, a ritual space, a temple carved by hand and firelight. You're not just looking at memories. You're stepping into them. You sit on a cool stone, torch resting against the wall. The air tastes of minerals and soot, and in that moment, you feel something not unlike love, a strange, aching warmth for the people who came before you, people who wanted to leave behind more than bones. One quirky detail archaeologists adore in some caves. There are handprints with missing fingers. Theories range from frostbite to ritual sacrifice, but others suggest a more symbolic gesture code, even a secret handshake with the stars. You can't know, but it gives you chills. Suddenly, you hear a whisper behind you. You whip around. Nothing there, just your own breath, just your heart, thumping in your chest like a drum echoing into stone. The old woman nods, not in approval, just in understanding. She's seen your face, seen the question blooming behind your eyes. You don't ask it out loud, but she knows. You're wondering if this is all there is. Just birth, fire, food, cave, stars, then death. But these walls say no. They say there's more. There's meaning. There's memory. And someone must carry it. As you and the old woman walk back toward the mouth of the cave, the light ahead brightens. The sky has shifted to pale gold. Birds flit through trees. The world feels louder than before, as if the cave has tuned your ears to hear things no one else does. You step out, blink, breathe, and look up. Even in daylight, the memory of those red spirals is with you. You carry it in your chest like a warm ember. From now on, every tree, every hill, every gust of wind might be a story someone forgot to tell. But you'll remember, because someone has to. You crouch by the riverbank, fingers caked with mud, holding a stone unlike the others. It's not the biggest or the smoothest, but it fits in your hand, and that's what matters. Its edge has been chipped to a sharp crescent, and when you drag it across a strip of sinew, it slices like a whisper. You grin. This one's a keeper. You don't know it yet, but this stone is more than a tool. It's part of a much bigger idea. It's the start of shaping the world, not just surviving it. You look around. Others in your group are doing the same. One is fixing a handle to a blade using tree resin and cord. Another is sorting flint flakes by size. A younger child is trying to imitate you, holding a rock way too big and whacking it uselessly against another, like she's trying to wake it up. And above it all, again the sky. It's there, always, watching. You don't need anyone to tell you it matters. But now, something odd happens. As you turn your stone over in your palm, admiring its clean edge, you glance upward and feel a tug. You're not sure what it is, just a strange alignment. As if the tool in your hand and the stars above are somehow part of the same sentence. It sounds silly, but it sticks. Over time, you begin noticing the rhythm. The stars shift just as the animals migrate. The moon swells and fades, like the hunger in your belly. The sun climbs faster some days, slower on others, almost as if it too is guessing what will come. Historians still argue whether early humans connected the stars to daily life in any practical way. Some say the first stargazers were just bored hunters, counting dots. Others insist this stargazing guided migrations, mating cycles, even seasons. But the pattern-spotting brain doesn't sit still. Once it starts connecting, it can't stop. And so, your flint blade becomes something more. Not just survival, significance. You decorate its handle. Not much, just a few notches. But you make them for a reason. The first animal you killed with it. the full moon that rose the night you first held it. The wound it helped you clean. It's still a tool, but now it's also a story. One curious artifact found in North Africa, known as the Ashango bone, has tiny, deliberate marks carved into it. Some believe it's an early lunar calendar. Others argue it's just tallying. But either way, it's a hint someone was counting something, and maybe not just to keep score, maybe to understand. You begin to see that things hold meaning, not just use. A stone isn't just a rock, it might be a gift, a memory, a promise, one you give your child, one you bury with your dead, one you place beside the fire every night, because it brings luck. You start to collect them, not just the sharp ones, but the pretty ones. Smooth river stones, red pebbles, a shard of crystal. A friend teases you for it. You trying to start a rock tribe? You shrug. Maybe. But the feeling doesn't go away. In your dreams, the stars begin to look like stones scattered across a black hide. The sky becomes a riverbed, a place where every glittering thing belongs somewhere. You wake up thinking you forgot something important, like a voice you almost heard. You tell no one. But the next time you sharpen your tool, you do it slower. You take your time. You hum to yourself as the flakes fall away, each one a whisper from the core of the stone. Fringe theories, usually dismissed in classrooms but clung to by late-night dreamers, suggest that early humans might have believed rocks held memories, not just in how they were shaped, but in what they had seen. A stone used in one hunt, they believed, might remember it, might carry it forward. Sounds odd. Sure, but look at your phone and try to say we're so different. You hold your finished blade in the sunlight. Its edge gleams. But what makes you smile isn't the sharpness. It's the notch shaped like a tiny half-moon, carved with your thumbnail the night your sister gave birth. You carry the tool, but it carries you, too. At camp that night, someone sits beside you and asks why you always keep the same blade. You tell them the story, and they listen. And for a moment, you feel something sacred pass between you, not just information, not just utility, but something deeper, like a tiny star blinking between two stones. We tend to say early humans lived short, brutal lives. But sometimes, in moments like this, they lived longer than we do. Not in years, but in presence, in awareness, in connection. You look down at your hands, dusty and calloused, and realize this: you're not just shaping stone, it's shaping you. And maybe the stars above don't care. Maybe they're just burning gas, light years away. But maybe, just maybe, they're watching. And every time you raise your tool to shape the world, they blink in approval. You've been watching them for weeks, now the stars. At first, they were just pretty. Something to glance at during long, chilly nights when the fire gets low and no one wants to speak. But over time, you begin to notice patterns. That bright cluster there, it always seems to appear just before the rains. The one shaped like a bent leg. It disappears for a while, then returns right when the berries ripen. You don't have names for them, not yet. But your eyes are memorizing their dance. The others tease you. One calls you sky sick. Another says you'll fall into the heavens if you stare too long, but you can't help it. It's not just stars anymore. It's signs. Tonight, you lie on your back beside the dying fire, arms crossed over your chest, watching the sky like it's a giant skin stretched tight across the world. You try to picture what's beyond it, but your brain gets all tangled. One elder says there's a great tree beyond the sky, and the stars are its fruit. Another swears they're the sparks from an enormous fire. And when it goes out, so do we. You like your own idea better. Maybe they're a story still being written. As more nights pass, you begin to mark the changes. You scratch lines into bark, poke dots into the dirt. You draw a jagged line on the inside of your shelter wall, matching the way one set of stars slowly shifts across the horizon. A crude calendar. A private map. You're not sure, but it feels right. Historians still debate whether this kind of star watching had a purpose or was just early curiosity. Some believe it was deeply spiritual, guiding early religious rituals. Others suggest it had a more practical use, predicting seasons for hunting, migrations, or mating cycles. Whatever the motive, one thing is clear. You weren't just looking, you were reading. One quirky find from southern Europe, a carved reindeer bone with rows of notches, suggests someone was tracking time. Perhaps moon phases, perhaps lunar eclipses, or maybe they just liked scratching things. But it's the repetition that matters. Repetition means pattern, and patterns mean intention. You remember one night in particular. You're out late, tracking a wounded boar with your cousin. You've been following its blood trail for hours, stomachs growling, feet soaked in swamp water. Then you look up and there it is, that same bright cluster, the rain star. You nudge your cousin. Tomorrow, the skies will weep. You whisper. He snorts. The stars don't care if we get wet. Maybe not, but you feel the weight of the pattern anyway. Sure enough, the next morning, gray clouds, soft thunder, and drizzle that soaks everything. Your cousin glances at you sideways, doesn't say a word, but from then on, he asks you when the rain is coming. One evening, the whole camp gathers to hear an old woman tell a story. She's toothless, slow-moving, always smells of herbs and wood smoke. But when she speaks, even the kids go quiet. She points at the stars and says, "Those are the footprints of the gods. They walked across the sky when the world was soft and left glowing steps behind." You smile. You know it's not true. Maybe, but it feels true. You begin to think of the sky like a script, one you can't read yet, but can almost feel, like it's humming above you, waiting to be decoded. Your dreams are filled with stars shifting like fish in dark water, and you wake up with the sense that something has changed. But no one else noticed, just you. One night, while the others sleep, you walk to the top of the ridge alone. It's high, windy, and smells like dry grass. From here, the whole sky opens like a cracked bowl. You lie down, press your palms to the earth, and look up. It's so vast, it almost hurts. And for just a moment, you feel the same thing you felt in that cave when you saw the red spirals on the wall. The same click, deep in your bones. The same truth. This is a language. It may not have words yet, but it speaks. Later, as you rejoin your people around the fire, you try to explain. The stars, you say, are telling us when things happen, when we should move, when the cold will come. One of the elders frowns. How do you know? You shrug. I just do. And from then on, a few others begin to watch too. It starts small. Just a few more eyes lifted at night. A few more murmurs about what might come next. But slowly, the sky becomes a companion, not just a mystery. You still don't know what the stars mean. Exactly. But you know they mean something. And maybe, in that soft not knowing, there's already something holy. The smell is strange, earthy, sweet, almost, with a sharp tang of blood. You're kneeling by a shallow pit, watching as others gently cover the body with dark soil. A few dried flowers are scattered across the chest. Someone tucks in a tiny carved bone figure, nothing fancy. Just a few scratches for eyes and arms, but it feels important. You've never seen this before. Until now, when someone died, you left them, far from the camp. High in the rocks or deep in the trees, the wild would take them. That was the way of things. But not this time. This time, you bury them. The one who died was old, kind, She used to hum while boiling roots and always saved the crispy bits for children. Her hands were cracked and gnarled like driftwood, but they felt steady when they rested on your shoulder. You don't know who decided it, but the group agrees she shouldn't be left for the vultures. She should go into the earth, wrapped in skins, laid gently, like you're tucking her in for the longest sleep. No one cries, not loudly, but no one speaks either. Just the soft thump of soil, the hush of wind moving through grass. It feels different. And so begins one of the strangest, most moving moments in human history, the deliberate burial. Historians still argue whether early burials were truly spiritual or just practical. Was it reverence or disease control, but the presence of red ochre, flowers and objects suggests something more, something personal, maybe even sacred. You don't have a god to explain it. You don't have a doctrine, but you have feeling. And feeling, it turns out, is enough to spark something enormous. You feel her body cooling beside you. But you also feel her presence still lingering, like the smoke from a fire long extinguished. You whisper her name under your breath, unsure why. Maybe to hold her a little longer. Maybe to remind the earth who's coming. Later, as the fire crackles and shadows twist on the walls of your shelter, someone tells a story. They say the stars are not just stars. They are the campfires of the dead. That those we bury find their way upward up past the wind, past the trees, past the black sky. And when they get there, they make a fire, and they watch us, and wait. You don't know if it's true, but you look up, and you wonder. One quirky archaeological discovery in Shanidar Cave, in what is now Iraq. The remains of a Neanderthal were found carefully buried alongside traces of pollen. Some believe this suggests the grave was adorned with flowers. Others think it's just contamination, but still it makes you think who brings flowers to the dead. Someone who misses them. You begin to see the earth differently. Not just something to walk on, but something that holds. You feel that when someone dies, they don't vanish, they pass into something below. Just as the stars hint at what's above, the soil whispers about what lies beneath, and suddenly, the world feels layered, not flat, not simple. Sky above, soil below, you in the middle, trying to make sense of both. Over the next days, others begin visiting the grave. One leaves a shell, another sings a song beside it. A child puts their favorite rock on top. It becomes more than a place. It becomes a memory. You start to wonder if others came before you and did the same. Maybe those massive rocks on the hill aren't just strange. Maybe they're markers, graves of people who mattered. You look around the world and begin to feel it differently, not just land, but land with meaning. And that changes how you live. Now, when someone dies, you remember. You wrap them carefully. You whisper. You dig. You leave things behind that matter. A broken tool, a worn charm, a feather from a favorite bird. It's no longer about survival alone. It's about continuity. And the more you bury, the more you notice the sky changes. A star disappears. A new one appears, flickering faintly. A coincidence, maybe, but still, you wonder if she made it. One night, as the fire dies low and sleep pulls at your bones, you dream of walking through stars, not under them, through them, like fog, like snowfall. You see faces in the light, some familiar, some not. You wake with your cheeks damp and your throat tight, but not sad, just quiet. You look at the stars and think, that's where we go. And maybe they're waiting. And you, here on Earth, still carry their stories, still shape stone, still watch the sky, still remember. Your feet ache. You've been walking for 2 days straight across open plains, through tangled forests, past dry riverbeds and whispering grasslands. The sun has blistered your shoulders, and the soles of your feet are raw. But no one complains, not even the children, because this journey isn't for survival. It's for meaning. At first, you didn't understand why you had to go. You asked one of the older men, and he simply said, "It's time." That was all. But as the group walks in, near silence, moving like shadows under the sky, you begin to feel it. A kind of hum in the air. Not a sound, a presence, as if the land itself knows where you're going and approves. You carry nothing special, just your walking stick and a pouch of dried meat. But inside, you feel like you're bringing something sacred, your body, your breath, your attention. Then, one morning, as the fog lifts off the hills, you see them, the stones. They rise like giants out of the earth, tall, silent, and perfectly still. Not just boulders. These were placed, aligned, stood upright by hands long dead. Some lean together in arches. Others form rings. One tilts just so, catching the morning light and casting a long, clean shadow that runs straight across the grass. No one speaks. Everyone just stares. And you get it. This place is not for living. It's for feeling. You step between the stones and the air changes. Cooler, quieter, like stepping underwater. You place your palm against one of the stones. It's smooth in places, rough in others. You swear it vibrates, but maybe that's just your own pulse. Historians still debate what early megalithic sites were used for. Some argue they were ceremonial gathering points, places for rituals, births, burials. Others think they were early observatories, aligned with the stars, the sun, or the moon. Then there are the fringe theories, energy centers, healing sites, or even alien landing pads. But whatever the truth, no one questions this. These places mattered. One peculiar finding at Nabta Playa, deep in the Nubian desert, a circle of stones dating back over 7,000 years appears aligned with the summer solstice. Long before the pyramids, long before writing, someone cared enough to drag rocks across the desert and stand them just to mark a moment in the sky. You wander through the circle. One stone has strange carvings, spirals, lines, something that looks like a fish. Another is stained red, maybe from ochre, maybe from centuries of hands. A child in your group tries to climb one and is gently pulled down. Not here. Someone murmurs. Not here. You sit in the center, cross-legged, and feel the wind brush your skin. The silence is thick but gentle. It's not empty. It's full of everything you can't say out loud. A man beside you starts to sing. No words. Just long, low notes that rise and fall like waves. You join in. Others do, too. The sound fills the circle, echoes, blends, becomes something that doesn't belong to any one person. Like you're not making it. You're uncovering it. In the sky, the sun begins to dip, and its last light slips through a narrow space between two stones, landing in a perfect line across the grass. Everyone turns. No one moves. It only lasts a moment. But in that moment, you see it. Someone built this. Someone knew the sun would pass right there, on this day, at this time. And they wanted you to know too. Not your name, not your tribe, but your existence, your presence in that place. They knew someone would come, and now you have. That evening, you sleep beside the stones. No shelter, just open sky and open silence. You dream of people standing the stones, sweating under sun, digging, lifting, carving. You dream of drums, of firelight dancing against tall stone shadows, of voices singing in a language you don't understand but somehow recognize. When you wake, your body feels lighter, like the earth has taken something heavy from you and replaced it with stillness. The others are already moving again, not hurried, Not sad, just changed. You glance back at the stones as you walk away. They don't move. They never will. But you do. And you carry their stillness with you, like a truth too big for words, but just small enough to fit inside your chest. The moon is full again. You sit alone near the edge of a quiet stream, watching its reflection ripple across the surface. It looks close enough to touch if only your hand could reach through the water. And then the sky. Your body feels heavy, but your mind is racing. You've bled again. It's not the first time. And it won't be the last, but every month. It startles you. The ache in your belly, the red on your thighs, the pull of the moon, as if she herself were tugging gently at your bones. And you're not alone in this. The older women noticed before you said a word. One handed you a piece of cloth and a smooth river stone to sit on. Another just smiled and touched your shoulder. "It comes," she said. "It always comes. Like the moon." And just like that, you understood. Some cycles aren't random. They return. You begin to watch the moon differently. Not as a glowing mystery, but as a clock, a calendar, a kindred body. You start marking the days after the bleeding stops. Small notches on a stick, one for each moonrise, one for each night you feel whole again. Historians still argue over who first measured lunar time, but many believe it was women tracking their own bodies, long before cities or writing or temples. After all, what better reason to notice patterns than to understand your own blood, your own rhythms? You feel part of something ancient, a whisper passed between generations without words, a way of knowing that's older than speech. One curious find supports this. Archaeologists in Africa uncovered a bone over 20,000 years old, carved with markings believed to represent a lunar cycle. Some think it's just tally marks, but others believe it's a record made by a woman, for herself. You like that idea? Sometimes, the other women gather with you. You don't always speak. Sometimes you sit by the water in silence, watching the moon climb higher, sharing warm roots and sour berries. Sometimes you hum. Once, someone brought red ochre and painted a circle on the rock beside you. "This is us," she said. "We come back." You laugh now, thinking of how the men roll their eyes. The moon group, one of them called it. But even he knew not to disturb you during those nights. Something about the gathering, the silence, the rhythm of your bodies together, it unsettles them. Maybe because you've touched something they don't understand. Maybe because you're building something without stone or fire, just time. You find comfort in counting. You learn to feel the shift of your own cycle before it starts. You sense the heaviness, the tug of water, the way the world feels thicker, more full. And you whisper to the moon without knowing why. "Come back. I'm still here. I still remember." Eventually, a younger girl comes to you in tears, her first blood, her confusion. You take her to the water, give her the cloth and the stone, and tell her what the others told you. It comes. It always comes. You watch her face as she sees the moon's reflection. You see the shift in her eyes, the understanding that her body isn't betraying her. It's joining something bigger, wiser, older than any story you know. In the days that follow, she starts carving her own marks, not like yours. Smaller, messier, but they're hers. And that matters more than you can explain. Some nights, the moon is gone. Just a sliver, or not at all. Those nights feel emptier, but you still sit by the water, still count, still wait. You begin to believe that the moon listens, not like a person, but like a mirror, reflecting you, reminding you. She never stays, but she never truly leaves. And now, when you look at the sky, you don't just see stars. You see yourself, your body, your time, your power. The moon gives no answers. but she gives consistency. In a world full of hunger, wind, and wandering, she is the one thing that returns again and again. And every time she does, you feel a little stronger, a little more real. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are part of a pattern that even the stars bow to. And no one can take that from you. You're awake before the sun again. But this time, you're not alone. A line of figures moves slowly across the open plain, each one silhouetted by starlight. No one speaks. It's not the silence of secrecy, it's the silence of purpose. You carry baskets, furs, painted stones, firewood wrapped in bark. Everyone has something in their arms, even the children. You're going to a place where the world feels thinner. Not far, just beyond the trees, where the ground opens into a shallow dip. But something about it makes your chest tighten. You've been here before, but only during the day. This time, you arrive in full dark. The stars above are sharp and bright, and the moon hangs low and golden. In the center of the clearing stands a tree, tall, leafless, its bark pale and peeling, its branches crooked like reaching fingers. Around it piles of stones, loops of dried vines, bits of antler and bone. Offerings. You're here for the naming. A child was born 2 days ago. Still small, always hungry, red as clay. And now, tonight, the group gathers to mark their arrival not just with words, but with meaning. You kneel beside a friend as she paints her face with ash and ochre. A sun on one cheek, a crescent moon on the other. You copy her with shaking fingers. No one tells you how, but somehow, you know the fire is lit with slow, careful hands. Smoke rises straight into the air, like it knows where to go. Someone starts to hum. Not loud, just low and steady, like breath turned into song. You glance up. The stars seem closer tonight. Historians still argue whether early naming rituals were tied to religion or survival. Was it a sacred act, or just a way to track who belonged? Some suggest names were whispered only during ceremonies to protect the child from spirits. Others believe the ritual was more symbolic, less about the child, more about the group. But whatever the reason, one thing is clear. Early humans didn't just have children. They introduced them to the sky, the earth, the community. A child is brought forward, wrapped in furs. They're silent, eyes wide. The eldest among you steps into the firelight. Her voice cracks like dry leaves. She has come, the elder says. So we give her place. No list of options, no vote. Just a name that feels drawn from the ground itself. A soft syllable that rolls like water and echoes like wind. You hear it once and somehow, you already know it by heart. Then the singing begins. Not in unison, not structured. Just voices rising one by one, weaving in and out like threads pulled through sky. Some sing in high, trembling notes. Others drum lightly on their chests. A child shakes a pouch of seeds, adding a rhythm. One fringe theory dismissed by many but adored by some is that early names weren't permanent, that they changed over time, depending on dreams, seasons, even celestial events. A baby born under the full moon might start as Moonchild, but grow into Silent Walker or Firehand. You love that idea, because in truth, you've always felt like your own name doesn't quite fit anymore. You were given it the day you stopped breathing for a minute and came back. But now, years later, that doesn't feel like the most important thing about you. You wonder if you'll earn a new name someday, or give yourself one. The naming ends not with applause, but with stillness. The fire crackles. The tree sways gently. And above it all, the stars remain unchanged, but somehow more aware, as if they've just learned a new word. You walk back slowly, carrying the child's old wrap. You run your fingers across its edges and think she'll never remember tonight. But the sky will, and so will you, back at camp. As the fire dies low and sleep takes hold of most around you, you stare into the coals and whisper your name, the one they gave you, the one you've worn like a coat. Then, softly, you try out a new one you made up, one that feels like yours, just to see how it fits. No one hears, except maybe the stars, and maybe that's enough. Smoke curls into the morning air as the food sizzles over the coals. Fat from something freshly hunted pops and crackles on hot stone, and your stomach stirs even before your eyes fully open. Another day begins not with a jolt, but with the soft rhythm of survival. You stretch, groan, and reach for your walking stick. You've been traveling again north this time, not for fleeing, not chasing, just following. The stars shifted, the animals shifted. So you did, too. You're part of a loose band, maybe 20, maybe 30 people. Some blood-related, some not. The lines don't matter so much anymore. What matters is who can carry, who can hunt, who can tell stories that keep the kids quiet during storms. But here's the thing you've started to notice. Your group is more than just bodies moving through space. It's a system, a breathing, adapting, solving together kind of machine. You don't realize it at first, but over time, it becomes clear. You're building something. Not walls, not cities, something else. Every time a fire is built just far enough from sleeping skins, every time you pass the bone needle to the one who sews best, every time you wait to eat until the oldest takes the first bite, you're creating rules, patterns, expectations, the glue of society. Historians still argue when true social structures began. Some pin it to the Neolithic Revolution once crops and surplus came into play. Others argue it began much earlier, with roaming bands like yours, wherever it started. It wasn't just about organizing, it was about meaning, about deciding who matters and why. One fringe theory suggests early human groups functioned like invisible villages, even while nomadic, that they had rituals, shared knowledge, even rotating leadership. No permanent buildings, but a very permanent culture. And you feel that right now. You know who tells the best hunting tales, who calms the crying baby fastest, who knows which mushrooms are death and which ones are dreams. No one writes it down, no one carves it into stone, but it's known, like breath, like heartbeat. Today, you walk beside a boy who just entered the older kid phase. He wants to learn, keeps pointing at things. What's that tree? Why is that rock red? What bird makes that sound? You answer some, make up the rest. But what matters is he's asking. So you pass down what you can. The red rock, you say. Iron. It smells like blood. You can mix it with water and paint your face if you're brave. He grins and tries it, even though the taste makes him gag. You laugh. So does he. Later, as the group stops near a sheltered ridge, the elders form a half circle. They're not the strongest or the loudest, but when they sit, the group listens. They begin debating something quietly. Where to camp next, whether to move tomorrow or wait out the wind. There's no shouting, no vote, just nods, grunts, shared looks that carry decades of understanding. It's not democracy, not a council. It's something older. You think about how many of your actions are part of this web. You hunt, you carry fire, you help with births, you sing old songs to the little ones even when you're exhausted. You do these things not just to be useful, but because someone did them for you once. This is the story beneath the stories that people stayed, that people tried, that even when they could have run, they chose to build. One night, someone brings out a drum, a stretched hide over a hollowed log. It's not for calling, it's for feeling. The beat begins slow, then it picks up, You begin to dance, not because it's expected, but because something ancient in your knees and hips wants to. The others join. The fire burns higher, and in this dancing, you feel it again, that thrum of being not alone, not separate, but woven. You don't need cities or laws to make culture. You just need connection, repetition, trust passed down like a flint knife, handle worn smooth by countless hands. Later, as the stars wheel above and the fire dims, someone tells a story. Not a new one. The one about the great deer with silver eyes who could see into your dreams. You've heard it since you were small. But tonight, you hear it differently, because now, you're the one repeating it. And the children listen like it's fire itself. You're carving again. Not because you have to, your tool already works fine, but because your hands are restless. The fire is low, the sky is dark, and there's something about shaping lines into bone that quiets your mind. Scratch, pause, scratch. You're not even sure what it's becoming. A spiral, a handprint, maybe a bird. It doesn't matter. It's the doing that counts. But beside you, someone leans over and says, "That looks like the dream I had." You blink. What dream? They shrug. There was a tunnel of stars. A bird flew through it. It sang without making a sound. You both laugh. You say, "That sounds more like a mushroom dream." But deep down, something shifts, because it does look like that. And just like that, your idle carving becomes something shared. You keep going. The bird now has wings, then feathers, then a sun above its head. The others gather slowly, offering advice, teasing you, sometimes helping. Someone adds dots for stars. Someone else draws a fish beside it. A story forms. You've just invented collaborative art. And more importantly, you're preserving an idea. Historians still debate when early humans began true symbolic expression. Was it 40,000 years ago in European caves? Earlier. In Africa, some say it came all at once, a creative explosion. Others argue it was a slow, smoldering fire. But regardless of where it began, one thing is undeniable. You weren't just decorating, you were remembering. One fringe interpretation of Paleolithic cave art suggests that what we call decoration was actually mapping, not of land, but of dreams, of spirit journeys, of inner landscapes only the painter had walked. A kind of visual poetry written in ash and ochre. And maybe that's true, because when you crawl into the back of the cave, torch in hand, you don't feel alone. The walls are alive. Handprints, hundreds of them, stare back at you. Some small as a child's, some faded, like breath long gone. You place your palm against one, fingers splayed. It fits, not perfectly, but close enough. Someone stood here, right here. They breathed. They saw something they had to mark. You try it yourself. You spit ochre from your mouth across the back of your hand, spraying pigment onto the wall. You pull your hand away and see the ghostly negative. It feels powerful, like a piece of you will stay here, even after your bones have turned to dust. Later, the firelight flickers across a new carving, a figure with antlers dancing. You recognize it from the stories. The forest walker, the dream chaser, the one who whispers to the deer and the moon. Is it real? You don't know, but it means something. And meaning, you've learned, is what makes anything real. You return again and again to the cave, not just to draw, but to sit, to feel, to be still with the stories. It's not a temple, not exactly, but it's sacred. A place where time folds inward, where the past breathes softly into your ear and says, "I'm still here." One day, a child asks you, "Why do we draw things we can't see?" You think about it. Then you say, "Because sometimes what we feel is more real than what we touch." They nod like that makes sense. And it does. Because in these walls, in these handprints, in these glowing eyes of painted animals, you're not just making art. You're building a bridge from dream to waking, from memory to meaning, from you to the ones who will come after. And that's the real magic. You realize that even if your voice fades, your mark might not. Even if your name is forgotten, your idea could glow in torchlight 1,000 years from now. And that's enough. That's everything. You wake to the sound of wind rushing through tall grass, the scent of ash still clinging to your hair. The sun hasn't yet risen, but the horizon glows the faintest orange, like a secret whispered from the earth to the sky. Today, you're not hunting, carving, or traveling. Today, you're remembering. A woman passed last night. Not the first, not the last, but this one was different. She wasn't the strongest or the oldest, but she was the keeper of stories, the one who remembered the names of rivers, the shape of the land before the trees changed, the seasons when animals disappeared and returned again. Her voice cracked like dry leaves when she spoke, but every word she gave felt like a seed. And now she's gone, and suddenly you realize there is no writing, no scroll to unroll, no carved clay tablet, no engraved stone, just you and what you remember. So today becomes an act of preservation, not with ink or paint, but with voice, with breath, with the trembling air between two people sitting close together. You sit beside the fire and say her stories out loud. Not perfectly, not word for word, but close enough. The others listen. The children lean forward. One of them mouths the words as you say them, like they're trying to catch them before they drift away. This is your archive now. Historians still argue whether oral traditions predated visual records or evolved beside them. Some suggest songs came first, helping us remember long patterns through rhythm and rhyme. Others argue gesture and drawing were the earlier mediums. But what's clear is that words spoken in the dark can live longer than ink left in the rain. You recall the strange memory stone she used to hold a smooth, flat rock with lines scratched into its surface. She claimed each mark was a story. You thought she was joking, but now, as you run your thumb over it, the patterns feel familiar. Maybe those marks were her script. One quirky theory from the Andaman Islands suggests certain elders carried story maps, landscapes woven into tales, where each hill, tree, and bend in the river meant a new memory to unfold. Like GPS, but powered by myth. You try that now. You tell the children about the northern pass, but through the tale of a spirit who sleeps under the rocks. You speak of the lake that never freezes, but only as the place where the moon once drowned herself in sorrow. It's a way to remember, to pass down. Because the truth is, humans are not the strongest species, or the fastest. We don't have claws. We don't have armor. But we have stories, and that has kept us alive more times than you can count. As the day warms, someone begins a chant low, simple, rhythmic. You hum along. The sounds aren't exact. They don't need to be. They're mnemonic anchors, each note tied to a fragment of the past. You close your eyes and speak her name, then another name, then another, and slowly, one by one, the memories are placed back into the circle. Not lost, just carried. You understand something you didn't before. The past doesn't live in caves or stones or bones. It lives in you. Every time you retell a story, every time you correct a detail, every time you sing the old song a little off-key, but still close enough to make someone smile, you resurrect a piece of what was. Later that night, as the fire burns low, someone takes your hand and whispers, "You're the story keeper now," and your throat tightens. Not from pride, but from fear, because you know how easily memory slips, how a single word forgotten can unspool an entire lineage, how silence, once started, grows fast and wide like fog. So you make a promise, quietly, into the coals. You will remember, even when it hurts, even when it fades. You will repeat her name. You will carve your voice into the wind. And if you're lucky, someday, someone will do the same for you. The sky is different tonight. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. You've moved far from your old hunting lands, and now the constellations have shifted. The bent leg star is gone, and in its place is a shape you don't recognize. You try to squint it into something meaningful, but it's like staring at someone else's dream. Still, the stars are there, watching, steady, and so you watch them back. You're part of a smaller group now. A few families split off to follow new herds. Some thought it was too risky. Others felt it was the right time. So you went, not because you were sure, but because you felt something pulling not from ahead, but from inside. Tonight, you're camped near a place that feels different. The ground here is stone, not earth, and it rings when you walk across it. Trees circle the space, tall and bare-limbed, like guardians. Someone jokes. Maybe this is where the sky was born. You laugh, then fall silent, because maybe a child finds a smooth stone shaped like an egg. Another finds two long bones crossed in an X. You start stacking small rocks without thinking one. Then two, then four. You form a spiral, just to pass the time. But something about it feels important, and that's the thing about humans we arrange. We organize the world into patterns, even when we don't know why. Historians still debate whether this urge to arrange things stones, sticks, thoughts is instinctive or learned. Some suggest it's tied to survival. Others say it's aesthetic or even spiritual. But wherever it comes from, it's unmistakable. One fringe discovery in the Blombos cave shows rows of geometric cross hatches carved into ochre, over 70,000 years old. They're not pictures, they're not tools, they're patterns, which means someone once sat in the dark and etched symbols into stone, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And here you are now, doing the same. By morning, everyone's added to the spiral. Bits of bone, feathers, stones in different colors. No one planned it. No one leads. But the spiral grows, inch by inch, like a conversation in slow motion. It doesn't serve a purpose, except that it does. It brings you all together. You find yourself thinking about order, about how even in chaos storms, illness, migrations, you keep trying to create structure. You make maps in your head. You sing songs in a certain rhythm. You build your shelters in the same shapes, always opening toward the morning sun. It's not habit, it's meaning-making. And it's not limited to things you can see. You start noticing how the old stories are shaped, too. Not just what happens, but how. They begin in the same places. They end with the same lines. The dream hunter always forgets her name. The mountain god always weeps. Its structure, passed from tongue to ear, over and over. And the more you repeat it, the more real it becomes. You remember your first shelter, lopsided, leaky, half-eaten by bugs. But yours? You remember how good it felt to make something even if it was flawed, because it was a small, defiant whisper in a wild, untamed world. I am here, and I can shape things. Now, when you stack stones or trace spirals in the dust, you feel that again, and you begin to wonder what else could be shaped. You start watching the way water curls around stones, how birds make their nests, how wind moves through tall grass like fingers combing hair. And you think maybe meaning isn't just something you create. Maybe it's already there, waiting to be uncovered. So you go to the edge of camp and begin something new. You place one tall stone upright, then another, a little to the side. You draw a line in the dirt between them, pointing toward where the sun rises on the longest day. You don't explain it to anyone, but when they see it, No one questions. By evening, someone's added flowers, and someone else sings a song beside it. You smile, because now you know even when everything changes, new lands, new skies, new fears, there is one constant. You are a pattern maker, and in every stone you place, every line you draw, every story you shape, you leave behind a map, not of the stars or the earth, but of your soul. You wake to the sound of laughter, and it's not from the children. Grown adults, full-bellied and half asleep, giggling like they've forgotten what century they're in. One has smeared berry juice on his face to mimic the ancient animal mask you painted on a cave wall last moon. Another is doing a poor impression of a saber-toothed dream goat. Whatever that is, everyone is wheezing, someone snorts, and you forget, for a few precious moments, how fragile life really is. You don't always laugh. Sometimes you just survive. But today, you laugh. Because tonight is a festival not planned, not marked on any calendar you haven't carved that far ahead yet. But the feeling caught up to you again, the need to celebrate. No one's dead. No one's starving. Nothing is chasing you, not a storm, not a sickness, not even a saber tooth. And in a life measured by weather and wounds, that is worth dancing about. So you do. You hang bones from trees. You smear clay across your cheeks. Someone builds a tall stack of wood, and another lights it with a coal cradled from last night's fire. The flame cracks high, licking the sky. The smoke smells like pine and salt. It's unnecessary. Beautifully, utterly unnecessary. And that's the point. Historians still debate the purpose of early festivals. Were they harvest markers, hunting season signals, or were they spontaneous bursts of collective joy, a flare of shared humanity in a cold, unpredictable world? One fringe theory proposes they were timed not by nature, but by dreams. That when a certain dream appeared to enough people, the gathering began. A dream quorum, if you will. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. You gather, you shine, you remember who you are. Not because of what hurts, but because of what lifts you. One woman starts spinning, hair flying, arms wide. A toddler copies her, legs barely stable, and the two twirl until they collapse in laughter. Someone taps two sticks together in rhythm. Someone else hums. The tempo builds. You grab a dried gourd and shake it until seeds rattle like distant rain. There's no script, no formal rite, but everything you do tonight feels ancient. The body paint, the singing, the jumping over fire like it's a test of courage, the passing of fermented honey water that makes the world wobble delightfully sideways. You realize, suddenly, that this isn't about marking time. It's about breaking it. Letting go of the past and future and diving into the now wild and messy and brilliant. Even the stars seem to pulse in approval. Someone shouts a made-up riddle. Why does the moon never marry the sun? Another shouts back. Because she only sees him when he's too bright for her taste. The kids don't get it, but they howl anyway. A little girl ties dried grass into a crown and places it gently on your head. You become the night chief for the hour. Your only job to bless the soup and declare which direction the smoke must not blow. You choose toward the loud snorer, which earns more laughter. But beneath all this silliness lies something serious. You're learning that joy is not a reward, it's a necessity, just like shelter, fire, memory. If you don't laugh, if you don't dance, if you don't shake your soul loose from the mud every once in a while, then what are you surviving for? And more than that, these nights bind you. Tomorrow you'll disagree. You'll argue about where to hunt or who broke the flint knife. But tonight, under firelight and a sky full of stars, you are one being, many names, one song. Someone begins a chant, slow, rhythmic, full of made-up words that feel like magic. It sounds like nonsense, but by the third round, you're all singing it. Even the baby gurgles in time. It becomes the anthem of a night that will be remembered for generations, not because anything important happened, but because you felt alive. Later, as the fire fades and laughter softens into sighs, you lie beside someone you love, not in the romantic sense, but in the "you've seen me cry and still shared your berries" sense. You rest your head on your arm and whisper, "We should do this more." They mumble back, "Next time the moon wears her tilted crown." You both smile and fall asleep to the soft hum of coal. Feet sore from dancing, face painted in joy. You've been here before, but never quite like this. The sun is dipping low, casting long shadows from the carved stones and painted poles that mark this place. It's not just any territory. You know that from the patterns etched into the bark of the trees and the glyphs painted onto flat slabs of stone. Each symbol has a name and a story. Each tells you who belongs here and who doesn't. You step past a tall wooden post carved with coiled serpents. A cluster of stones lies at its base, each one painted red, black, or white. You know they represent the clans, the river people, the hill walkers, the star watchers. You pause to trace the curl of a serpent fang. It feels alive under your fingertips, like it's still guarding something precious. Then you move on, following a line of buried markers, antler tines stuck upright in soft earth. No one else mentions them, but you remember when you buried those. It was after the naming ceremony 2 moons passed. Each family brought an antler from their best hunt. They bound them with sinew and buried them just beneath the grass. You remember the sun warming your back as you pressed your antler into the ground and thought, "This is home. This is what marks us. Not walls, not fences, but symbols we carry inside, then leave on the land." You walk until you reach a circle of black stones, larger than any you've seen. Their surfaces are polished smooth, like a calm river. You sit in the center, cross-legged, and feel the ground hum beneath you. It's not a sound you can hear, but a vibration like the land itself remembers every footstep, every story, every oath taken here. Historians still argue whether prehistoric land markers served primarily legal functions establishing clan territories, or whether they were inherently spiritual, destined to keep sacred ground inviolate. Some suggest these symbols enforced social order, while others see them as early places of worship, where the earth itself was honored, a quirky detail you love in one distant valley. Archaeologists found what looked like giant foot-shaped carvings, giant footprints. They called them. They argue whether they were warnings to trespassers or welcoming signs for pilgrims. Either way, you imagine ancient people laughing at the idea, shoving the rock foot into the ground and saying, "Here's where we stand." You smile now, thinking how similar we are, how we still carve our marks, though our stones are parking lots and our graffiti tastes questionable. You laugh to yourself. If we still drew spirals and handprints, city halls might have crown jewels. A stray breeze carries the scent of pine resin and baked clay. You pick up a small disc of clay from the ground, half buried, stamped with an abstract symbol, 2 triangles linked at the points. You recognize it immediately, your own family's seal, used on pottery and woven cloth. How did it get here? A festival gift, a lost token, a fragment of something bigger. You hold it against the dying light and imagine the potter's wheel spinning, fingers pressing into wet clay, forming the discs, then the sun baking them hard so they might last for ages. You tuck it into your pouch, promising to return it at the next gathering. Every symbol you touch reminds you of someone. The elder who taught you to interpret star glyphs, the woman who wove baskets with spider motifs, the man who carved antler at sunrise. Each made these marks not for fame, but for belonging. You stand and begin to walk back along the boundary line. Beneath a leaning pillar, someone has painted a winding river. It loops around itself like a spiral, splitting the land in two. On one side, your people's huts and grain stores. On the other, dense forest and hunting grounds. No arrow or spear marks indicate danger. The river itself is enough a natural border respected by clans for generations. You step over a fallen stone, heart thumping. As you do, a teenager peeks from behind a tree, grin plastered across his face. He jabs a finger at a rune carved into the trunk, a simple arrow pointing east. You nod in amusement. He thought he'd made a clever prank. But that arrow has an older meaning, Sunrise Dwellers. A subgroup of the Hill Walkers. He half apologizes, half challenges you to find his clan's secret hiding spot. You laugh and point it out, a low outcrop of rock covered in lichen, just big enough for two to hide and whisper. He scampers off, triumphant. This place is alive with connection. Every symbol, every stone, every painted line is a conversation between past and present. Each clan reminds the next where to graze, where to hunt, where to mourn, where to celebrate. You pause at the final marker, a polished obelisk carved from red sandstone. It towers above you, a silent sentinel. Air burbles around its base, as though a gentle current flows beneath the earth. You run your palm along its edge and feel every groove the chisel strikes. The weathers wear. The lichens slow crawl. Here, someone your ancestor, you like to think, stood and swore an oath. Maybe to the land, maybe to the stars, maybe to the ones who'd follow. You whisper a vow of your own to remember, to respect, to carry this ground in your heart. No matter where you roam, because this sacred land isn't just territory. It's a tapestry, a story map, a web of lives woven into roots and rock and sky. You step away, leaving sunlight slanting through trees. The markers stand silent, but you feel them watching like proud parents guarding their children's path. And you carry their guidance with you, across fields and forests, across rivers and mountains, toward the next horizon. Wherever you go, you will carve new marks, add your own strokes, join the ages-old dialogue between you and this land. Because that's how humans became human, by leaving parts of ourselves behind, so others might find them. And by reading the symbols left by those who preceded us, you raise your face to the sky, as if seeking approval from the ever-watchful stars. And for a fleeting second, you swear you see a bright spark wink back. You're standing still, for once. No task in your hands, no fire to stoke, no child to hush. Just breath, rising and falling in your chest like waves on a calm sea. The wind brushes against your cheek, warm, soft, almost intentional, as if the world itself is saying, slow down, you've earned it. Around you, people move with a rhythm that no one taught them, but everyone seems to know. Someone is repairing a sandal with sinew. Another is grinding seeds into powder. Farther off, a girl ties woven charms into a low-hanging branch, humming a tune passed down from her grandmother, who swore it could summon rain if sung with the right sadness. It's quiet, but not silent. The kind of quiet that cradles you. Not emptiness, but space for thought, for memory, for gratitude. You sit, you think of how far you've come. Not just in distance, though, that, too, but in knowing. Not the kind of knowing you can measure or explain, but the deeper kind, the kind that lives in your bones, the kind that stirs when you see firelight reflected in someone else's eyes and realize they know it too. You think of the stars you've followed, the stones you've marked, the stories you've told and heard and become part of. Historians still debate when humans first had a concept of legacy. Some argue it began with burial, when we placed our dead not just in the ground, but with tokens and offerings, suggesting belief in something beyond. Others believe it came later, with monuments and myths. But whatever the timeline, the truth is undeniable. You've always wanted to be remembered. Not with fame, not with statues, but with that quiet ripple, the one that moves through time like a whispered song, the one that says, I was here, I mattered. One fringe theory you love, this one says that ancient people believed certain songs could carry a person's essence forward, attaching their spirit to the melody. Not trapped, not haunting, just traveling, like a migrating bird, like a dream that knows the way. And maybe that's what you're doing now. You're sitting in the soft grass, watching the sun begin to fall, singing a small, personal song just to yourself, but also to the world. One you'll never perform, one with no audience but the sky, a goodbye and a thank you, folded into one. You rise slowly and begin to walk. Not far, just to the river. Its banks are strewn with flat stones, smoothed by centuries of stories told and forgotten. You pick one up. It fits your hand like it was shaped for you. On its surface, you scratch a mark, not big, not bold, just yours. A circle within a circle. No one will know what it means. Not in 1,000 years. But you will. You place it carefully back among the others. You whisper a soft word, one you've made up entirely, and then step away. That night, as everyone gathers around the fire, someone begins to hum. It's not planned, just natural. Another joins, and another. Soon the entire group is swaying, eyes half closed, mouths open just enough to carry the notes. It's not a song you know, but it feels familiar, like it's always existed, waiting for this moment to be remembered. As the embers glow and the wind thickens with dreams, you close your eyes, and you see it all. The fire and clay, the stars above, the stones beneath, the first footstep, the first question, the first story whispered beside a flickering flame. And suddenly, nothing feels small. Not your mark, not your story, not your life, because every one of them is a thread woven into a tapestry that stretches far behind you and infinitely forward. And tonight, wrapped in warmth, surrounded by memory, you understand something that doesn't need words. You belonged here, and you always will.